This episode is brought to you by Whitaker Garage Doors, your one-stop shop for all things garage doors, proudly based in Peekskill, New York. Your home is a direct reflection of your personal style, and let's face it, your garage doors are the first thing people see when they pull up your driveway. Whether you're looking for the timeless charm of a classic carriage house door or the clean, sleek look of a basic wood finish, Whitaker Garage Doors offers traditional options for every taste and budget. I can personally vouch for their incredible service. When I had my own garage doors done, I was blown away by their timeliness, professionalism, and overall respect for their clients. Jonathan, Cassara, and their entire team are top-notch, and they really go the extra mile to ensure you're happy with the final result. So if you're in the market for a new garage door or need some repairs, give them a call or find them on Instagram at Whitaker_doors. Don't forget to tell them you're a friend of Dave's over at the No Snooze Podcast. Whitaker Doors. You won't regret it. Now, back to the epi. Adversity? Bring it. The struggle? I welcome it. Snooze on life? Never that. I am Dave Reggina, and this is the No Snooze Podcast. Come on. Welcome back, No Snooze Podcast, episode 234. And as always, I'm in the booth with my brother, Claudio the Voice Valenzuela, and I am Dave, the tan body, Reggina. So we are still on our interview series, and we hope that you guys are enjoying your summer. I was featured on the Unchill Podcast with Pratt, who had reached out to me via Instagram DM and said, "Hey, Dave, I saw you speak at A to B. I love all the work that you're doing with mental health," and it really aligned with her mission. And again, the podcast is called Unchill, and her whole journey is all about getting away from everyday life and finding true purpose. It was a great interview, one that I'm extremely grateful for, and I hope and I pray that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Until next time.
Welcome to the Unchill Podcast. I have a very special guest with me today. David Reggina is a dynamic leader, motivator, and entrepreneur from New York. Reggina was recognized on the 914 INC's top 30 under 30 list in 2019 as the state's youngest commissioner for the impact and advocacy in the community. Reggina has featured in major publications like Yahoo, U.S. Business News, and Star Tribune. Reggina hosts the global popular No Snooze podcast, which serves as a beacon of inspirations to embrace opportunities and seize pivotal moments. Reggina co-founded Action Cultivates Excellence, ACE, a personal and professional development group dedicated to equipping individuals with the tools needed to excel in modern leadership. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. So I believe it was last month where I saw you speak at my good friend Brandon Gador's A to B Con, and you are so incredibly inspiring. I've heard about you for about 6 months. I've heard about you. Talking about the ACE, everything you're doing for the community, and really helping men with their mental health. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Pratt. Well, thank you so much for reaching out.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the kind words as well. I like what you're building. I like what you're all about. We had a great phone conversation, and I think it's a testament to you as well, just on the journey that you're on. You know, you're fully engulfed in personal, professional development, which is obviously what I do. And shout out to Brandon Gadoris and Warm Heart Life and what he's doing. And you know that opportunity to speak was great, and got a lot of really good feedback from that panel discussion that I was on. So I'm happy you reached out. So. God bless.
Yeah, absolutely. What got you started in self-development?
Oh, long story short, my life was not what it looks like today. And in 2017, my life was kind of in shambles. We'll get right into the good stuff, right? Because that's what everybody wants to hear. And I'm at a place now, just to be transparent before I talk about the story, all of those bad decisions that I made along the way that we'll talk about, you have two decisions in life, right? Like those bad mistakes can define who you are, or you could flip the script and really make a pivot and change your life. And that's what I did. So I no longer identify, as the man that I was back then. I know who I am today, and I am very confident, and I am outgoing, and I pour into individuals, and I encourage and inspire individuals, but it wasn't always that way. So back in 2017, my life kind of came crumbling down. I got married when I was 24 years old, which was very young to get married, but it just felt right at that time. And, I quickly found myself like in the clubs. I had a good job. That was something that I've always been able to make money. I was in government early, had some success in the workforce, but behind the scenes, things weren't really good. So I was heavily drinking into the clubs, listening to a lot of rap music. And if you listen to rap music, I still do it, from time to time, but I think there's a time and a place for that now. I quickly found myself doing the things that I was like listening to, getting attention from women, spending money on bottles, and, just running around with certain individuals that really were feeding into that lifestyle. So I was humbled pretty quickly because I found myself in an affair. So I made a lot of bad decisions there because I was chasing, some attention that maybe I wasn't getting at home at that time. And I paired that with also a moment where my mom was really struggling. She was addicted to drugs and alcohol for the first 28 years of my life, but she's sober 6+ years. So I shout out my mother every time I have an opportunity to do so. She's a hero of mine. But she wanted to get sober around that same time. So something kind of clicked for me. I always was interested in personal and professional development, but it was like not a mandate for my life. So I said, I really need to change. So I did one thing. I started listening to podcasts. And when I would go to the gym, instead of putting on rap music, I would throw a podcast on. Now, the first podcast episode I listened to, I recall it being Tony Robbins and Ed Milet, which happens to be two of the greatest leaders of all time. And while they were talking, I started getting like chills in my body. Chills. And I'm like, what is this? This is wild. So I did that very quietly for a period of about 6 months. And I would just listen, wouldn't implement anything. But then from a period of 6 months to the next 3 years, I started to not only listen to podcasts, but I would also begin to implement the tools, the tactics, the strategies, the habits, the routines into my life. And my life did a complete 180, right? Finances got better. My relationship turned around at that time. My personal relationships, I became more aware. And then I started to stack like a pretty dope morning routine, right? Like I would wake up, I would hydrate my body. I would begin to pray for a couple minutes. Then I would move my body in the gym, and I would read 10 pages of a personal professional development book while I'm listening to podcasts. So the long story short there is really podcasting ended up changing my life. And then I took that a little bit further and then started my own podcast a couple years after that.
When you were going to the self-development phase, were your friends supportive?
Yes and no, right? I've always been of inspiration for other people. So even when we would go to the clubs or we were on vacation, I was the guy that was like waking everybody up at 7 a.m., but we were just out till 4 a.m. So they liked that side of things, that like when they were with me, I was inspiring them. But there were a handful of individuals that kind of looked down on what I was doing. Oh, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? Oh, like, what are you better than us type situation? And those individuals are always going to exist. And honestly, like I still love those people, but they're no longer as close to me as they were, right? You begin to separate yourself, and that's okay. Like I still love you. I just have to love you from a distance. And that was something that I wish I learned a little bit earlier in life, because I am one that I was very focused on impressing people, whereas now my focus is on impacting people. And the way to impact people is to live out the words that you say. Right. So how can I be out here inspiring, encouraging people and motivating people if I'm not like doing that in my own life? It's very quickly people can tell like what true authenticity is. You know what I mean? But your environment is extremely important, and those you keep close to us should be very strategic.
How did you step away from the validation? Because I think it's really hard to get away from that.
I think I became validated through the work that I was doing on myself. You know, like I think when you're seeking external validation and like instant gratification, it's because there's a lack of self-confidence behind it. I was always a confident guy in terms of like how I looked, but internally I was like struggling a lot. I almost had like this like imposter syndrome, which I still struggle with a little bit today. But like, you're a fraud, like, you know. But I think the amount of repetitions that I've put in on myself, like nobody shows up the way Dave Reggina shows up for Dave Reggina. Mm-hmm. Like every time I look in the mirror, I'm like, wow, you're a handsome man. And then I follow it up with like healthy actions, right? So when you're doing that day in and day out, year after year after year, like that compound effect is serious, but that compound effect can work in the same exact negative way, right? Like one bad habit can lead to 2, can lead to 4, can lead to 8. And before you know it, your life is a mess. So I'm grateful for every experience that I've had. I mean, I'm not proud of every decision that I made by any means. But I can't say that like I regret, you know, all these things in my life, because I wouldn't be who I am today. And even in terms of my relationship, I wouldn't be in the healthy relationship that I'm in today. You know, yes, I'm divorced, but I'm in a very healthy relationship with a woman who has now got me at my best, you know? So I think I had to go through those situations to be able to, you know, now live the life that I've kind of always wanted to live.
Coming back to your relationship, did you, in the beginning of this healthy relationship, did you find it being very triggering? Sometimes I feel like toxic relationships can have an impact on our bodies, and we kind of gravitate towards that sometimes. Was this healthy relationship kind of feeling different for you?
No, because this was the relationship that I've been waiting for. You know, I after my divorce, I was single for a couple of years, and I enjoyed that time, right? But like that was also a time for me to kind of explore and like have some time to myself, go on certain dates, which, listen, shout out to everybody out here on these dating apps and stuff, because I can't do it. I've never been on a dating app or anything like that. I need to know that there's like a, you know, a common ground and a common connector for me to, you know, really go in that type of situation. But I felt through the work, again, and the changes that I've implemented in my life, that I deserved a healthy partner, that I deserved a healthy relationship. And, you know, shout out to my beautiful girlfriend, Catherine, who, you know, has been by my side now ever since. And we actually went to college together too. So we go back, you know, 13, 14 years. Never in that way, but like it's nice to reconnect with somebody, you know, when you're in a completely different space. And also, like, I knew what I was looking for. There were certain things that I was not going to settle on. And I think in relationships, often we find ourselves settling. And that is something that I would tell anybody that's listening here is do not settle for what you know that you want, right? Like, and for me, I had core values. Like family needed to be a core value, interest in personal and professional development, faith, right? Didn't necessarily have to be my faith per se, but like knowing that there's a higher power, somebody who's consistent and disciplined in the things that they want to do in life, somebody who has a clear vision, somebody who has a personal mission in life. And I was able to check all those boxes. Now, that doesn't mean that the relationship is perfect by any means, because there's a lot of things that I know that I do that bother her. And there's a lot of things that, you know, I'm sure she does that bother me. And that's okay. And that's normal. But relationships, I don't think they're ever easy, but you have to be very intentional. And if that intention is there to wake up every day and say, you know what, I love you, I'm grateful for you, and I choose you today, that's one of the most important things in relationships.
What type of conversations do you and your girlfriend have now that keep you guys moving forward?
Conversations like this, real ones, you know, like where we want to get better in life, where we struggle. We're both clearly, we understand that the mistakes that we've made in the past, again, don't define who we are, but we're on a path of growth, right? And we do that individually and collectively, which I think is important. When you put all your eggs in someone else's basket, that's a problem in a relationship, right? And oftentimes I see, like just through my experience, that like one person can't move without the other. Like, no, it's okay. Like we like our space. But we also know that we are stronger together on the things that we want to, do together. We're very intentional about daily prayer. We make it a point to have date nights, right? We do that pretty much either weekly or bi-weekly. The way that she is with my daughter, Callie, is something that I'm just blessed. And the connection and the love that they have for one another, it was something from day one. So my girlfriend also wrote a book. It's called Elevated Glow, Transform from the Inside Out. And in that book, her forward, I think that's what it's called, her dedication was actually to, I think, her nieces and her future children. So she's just so connected to just youth in general. So it was no coincidence and no surprise that like her and my, soon to be 5-year-old daughter just connected. So hopefully that answers the question about the types of conversations we have.
How are you raising your 5-year-old daughter? Like with all this self-discipline and self-development world that you're in, what have you used to ingrain those on her?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot, but I just live my life, right? Like I don't do anything different to parent her. I just include her in my daily life. So for example, when we wake up, we make the bed together. Callie, go on that side, pull the blanket. Why do we make the bed? And she'll say, healthy habits. And we pray together and we clean together. So I had my daughter at a very vulnerable age for her. Me and her mother split up before she was 2 years old. So she was in my possession 4 days a week, full time, just me and her. And full transparency, I had to learn how to clean her private parts properly. I had to learn how to brush her hair. Not that I didn't know anything, but like it's very different when, you're in a situation where there's two parents, a mother and a father, versus now like, just kind of doing it all on your own. And, being that emotional support system for my daughter when she like needed me most. And that was really hard, and that situation brought me closer to God because I remember a specific time she was 2 years old and, she's always had this like little gag reflex thing when she gets kind of upset and emotional. She'll start coughing and then she starts throwing up. And she was about 2 years old and I like kind of lost it and she threw up everywhere. And at that time I just like decided, I remember screaming for a second, like, oh my God, I gotta clean this up. How could you do that? But I actually took an AirPod and I like put it in my ear and I just started playing worship music. God, please calm me down in this moment. And that little habit kind of changed everything. And, instead of doing that in my ear, I would actually put it on the TV or I'd play it out loud. And now like we sing worship songs together. And, I think parents get stressed because we try to do so many things like for our kids, or maybe I'll put off doing the dishes until my child goes to sleep, or I'll clean the house when my daughter goes to sleep. No. If they're young, incorporate them in, right? Here's a sponge. Like, even though you're not going to do anything with it, but like just get familiar with this. And nobody maintains my home. I have a cleaning lady who comes once a month, but like I clean daily, So I think the real answer there is incorporating my daughter into the lifestyle that I've kind of built.
What kind of routine do you have? I know you started or you did a fast. Mm-hmm. How was that for you? Why did you do it? And kind of what was like the conclusion of it?
So you want me to go to the fast or the routine?
Both, I guess. Like start with the routine and then the fast.
Okay. So my routine is pretty hefty now. I believe that proper preparation prevents poor performance. So everything in my life does have to be in a routine. Now, this is a gift and a curse of Dave Reggina because I still struggle when things kind of aren't structured. I get through it, but I really prefer a disciplined and structured movement. So my morning routine actually starts the night before. I pick out my clothes, not only for the gym, but also for work. I set my Yeti for, 32 to 40 ounces of water with an Element salt packet the night before. I put the coffee Keurig pod ready to rock with the cup underneath it. And I do this, I pick out my daughter's clothes the night before. She's getting to the point now that she's starting to do that. I do this because I don't leave things to chance anymore. Like I try to control what I can control. And these are all things that like, it might only take a minute to go into the pantry, get my coffee, set the cup and do that. But like, that's a minute. right? And now making my water is another minute. Picking my clothes out, I might be indecisive. That could be 3 minutes. Before you know it, I'm ahead 20, 25 minutes because I've just made these small little decisions the night before. So I wake up, first thing I do is I don't hit that snooze button. Right, my podcast is called the No Snooze Podcast because it's a metaphor for life. And shout out to my brother who happens to be recording this episode, Claudio, the voice Valenzuela is what I call him, for being on that journey with me from day one. We're 225 episodes in and counting, but wouldn't be here without that man right there. So that's extremely important. That decision in the morning became a metaphor for my life, right? Not snoozing on anything that I do, waking up and attacking everything that I do. I walk to the bathroom while I'm hydrating, and everyone's got to pee in the morning, so I'm literally hydrating and I pee. I look in the mirror, I tell myself, all right, today's going to be a really good day, maybe a prayer here and there, and then I go make my coffee. I make my coffee, I sit down, and before I get into my Bible, I actually have Joel Osteen in my ear. So Joel Osteen is, one of my favorite pastors of all time. And as I'm going through like my morning routine, I just have his message playing because it's like the first conscious decision that you can make. Like, why would I allow these negative thoughts to creep into my mind when I can just feed it with some good spirited stuff? So then from there, I sit down while I'm drinking my coffee and I read just 3 to 5 pages of my Bible. I've never been a religious guy. Isn't that crazy? Like I'm always talking about God now, and I never was religious, but I knew there was a higher power guiding. So faith to me is, instrumental and very important, and God really runs everything in my life. He comes first always. So from there, I'll take my daughter to school and I'll hit the gym. I'll hit the gym for, an hour to an hour and a half. Follow that up with a 20-minute sauna. While I'm in the sauna, I meditate for 15 minutes, visualize my day. I pray for the guidance, the clarity, the wisdom to move forward. And then I take a cold shower. I take a cold shower because it's, again, another decision that, like, most people are probably putting it on warm. I'm just like putting it on cold and getting uncomfortable and challenging myself. And then I drive to work and I kind of tackle the day from there. But that's my morning routine. It's very elaborate now, but again, it didn't always start that way.
I do want to touch base on faith. At what point did God become such a big part of your life?
That's a pivotal question. And God was always present in my life. I always felt him there, but I never really sought him out. God actually utilized my mother as a source to get to me. So my mom, like I said, was heavily addicted to drugs and alcohol for the first 28 years of my life. And, she decided that she wanted help, and she decided she wanted to get sober. So long story short, she was staying in my house one night, and I was in control of her medication because she had told me, like, look, I want this help. And every 5 minutes she would knock on my door like, David, I need my pills. David, I need my pills. So the doctor told me, like, look, you can't just take her off of these pills because you can't withdraw somebody off of Xanax. And she was taking, 8 to 10 Xanax a day for a long period of time. So every time she would come in, it was like she knew that I was giving her a sugar pill. Because 7 minutes later, she was knocking on my door, David, I need my pills. Then I give her a real one, and then a sugar one, and this one. And then eventually I snapped. And I went into the room, and I poured all the pills in my hand. I said, Mom, take these. She started crying, and she said, you want me to die? I said, no, I don't want you to die. I want you to be at peace. And unless a higher power can save you, there's nothing that I can do for you. She takes one pill. This is a woman who's been addicted to drugs and alcohol for a long time. Her eyes roll to the back of her head, and her head actually hits the headboard on the bed. I was like, oh my God, she's dead. I get really close. I see she's like breathing. I'm like, oh my God, maybe she's asleep. So I let her sleep. 5 hours later, she comes and she knocks on my door, and she looks me dead in the eyes, and she says, David, I'm ready to get sober. So at that time, I knew that she was serious. She goes into a 30-day home, Sunrise House Rehab Center in New Jersey, who we are forever indebted to. Sat her down in a very industrial-looking building. Right above her was a serenity prayer. We check her in. 30 days later, she comes out sober. She never touched a drug again in her life. Now, if that's not God, I don't know what is. And now I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in God. And that is something that I wish that I had a little bit earlier in my life, but also that experience that my mother and I shared. It's the most pivotal moment in her life and my life. And for a long time, our relationship struggled. And that was something that just like bonded us together. We call each other our higher power. You know, even though we know God is at the center, like she's like, David, you're my God. Like, and I'm like, Ma, you're mine, you know, and now we have this beautiful relationship. But to me, there was no other way, right? Like she couldn't do it on her own. She wanted to get sober, and that's always the first step in sobriety. But you do need to have a higher power kind of helping you. And now that higher power has just lifted the urge. She doesn't drink. She doesn't do any drugs. She actually speaks to hundreds of people in the AA community now. And she's a very sought after speaker in that world. And, you know, she's a huge source of inspiration for me.
Your mom was on drugs for 28 years of your life. How did that affect you? Who were you looking up to?
And just because she was on drugs, I do want to be clear, she was a great mom. You know, she really was a great mom. It wasn't until she always cooked for us. I mean, you know, my house was always clean. It's never like I was homeless or anything like that. So I do want to be clear because a lot of people get it twisted and they're like, oh my God, like even family members of mine, they're like, you're making it seem like it was so bad and this. And I'm like, no, we always had food on the table, always had a home, but there was a lot of stress in that home. You know, and whether certain individuals want to identify with that stress or not, like I developed Crohn's disease, which is a very heavy link to stress. So, you know, my mom, when she would be on these substances, she was a different person at times. So I actually look at it now as, you know, it helped me because I had to learn how to read a room very, very quickly. I had to know what type of time my mom was on. Like, you know, how was she going to respond? How was she going to react? But then the next day, the way it was is like we kind of just woke up and we would be friends again, you know? But there was a lot of yelling and a lot of screaming, and her and my dad, like, you know, they taught me some of the most pivotal lessons in my life, right? I always attest like never giving up and, you know, my work ethic to my father and then my resilience to my mother. So without them, I'm obviously nothing. But around age 13, 14, my mom and I really started to like clash. Like no longer was I going to like just accept certain behaviors and I would fight back. And then it got to a point that like we had a couple like really, really ugly ones and her and my dad had split. And then I decided to live with my father all through, you know, high school. And I have a brother and sister as well. So my brother and sister stayed with mom. And then my brother ended up going with dad, and mom and my sister stayed together. And again, we're all super, super close. It sounds like a little crazy when you're going through it, but it's really not. And anybody who's going through like, you know, family stuff, like it's okay. It's what makes you unique. As long as you come out of the other side, it doesn't matter how bad things got. Like a family can never be torn apart if you choose that, right? So like, thank God we're all on, you know, really good paths now. But coming up was tough. You know, it was definitely tough. And I had to grow up very quickly, you know, and I think that also helped me as well. And I had to shield, like, you know, my brother and sister from certain things. And, you know, I think we learned a lot, you know, and my parents only knew what they knew, and they did the best that they could with what they had. And they always provided us with a good life. But like, you know, yeah, things were a little rough at times.
I know you have the ACE community. Mm-hmm. What made you want to start that?
ACE, and shout out to my partner and brother, Sean Degnan. Action Cultivates Excellence is what ACE stands for. And it is a leadership development group company now, which is the thing that we needed most in our lives. Clearly, I sit before you a completely different man at 35 years old today. If ACE existed when I was going through my stuff and I had a solid community of specifically men that I could talk to about my issues, I probably wouldn't have made the same mistakes that I made along the way. So it really became the thing that we needed that really wasn't around, right? So that's why we created it. And Sean himself has his own phenomenal journey. He'd be a great guest for your show as well. Happy to, connect you there. But he has a wonderful story and, you know, a wonderful breakthrough. And just because you're broken doesn't mean you can't break through. So, you know, we focus on transforming potential into personal excellence, and our message sticks. You know, I think people are very. It's easy to detect when people are really about this life or not, right? And that's anything in life. So when him and I get up and we, are leading this group of men, which is kind of how it started, men open up to us. And we have a tagline where we bridge the gap between masculinity and vulnerability. It's sad that that exists to where, you're like, oh, I can either be masculine or, feminine or vulnerable. The reality is both is what we need, right? It's very cool to be a strong physical man, but it's even cooler to pair that with a high level of emotional intelligence. And now when you can do that, you can become the best businessman, the best partner, the best husband, the best father. And that's why ACE was really built and why we're so committed to the journey.
How do you get men to talk about things that they've never talked about?
I'll ask you this. When I'm talking to you, telling you about all of the things that we're talking about today, like if I wanted to fire back and say like, all right, now you talk to me about something that's challenging, what would you do?
Probably talk about something challenging.
Why?
Because you just opened up to me.
Right. So I think the biggest thing is that vulnerability builds trust. Now, trust is the thing. If you want to build a community, no matter what you're doing, people have to trust you. And by sharing your faults, your mistakes, your flaws, and not focusing on them, but saying like, you know what, I'm a human being too. Like I messed up, but I'm on the path to be better. Doesn't mean I'll never make a mistake ever again. It just means that I'm focused more on like not making the mistakes. So I'm going to be a little bit more intentional with my living. I'm going to try a little bit harder in my daily life to make sure that I'm not making the same mistake over and over and over again. So the short answer there is trust, right? I think men trust us.
What consists in this ACE community? Like what happens?
What happens in ACE?
Yeah. Like,
so the way it started was really just through an idea. Mm-hmm. I mean, we actually did a podcast, and podcasting is great for connections. That episode did really, really well for us, and just in terms of the platforms. And I remember sitting with Claudio, and he was like, "Yo, like," because we had lost my co-host at the time, and Claudio was like, "Yo, like this guy might be like your next co-host." I'm like, "Well, I'm not really looking for a co-host, but like I think there's something there." And our relationship was just built off of action, Sean and I. So he would say like, "Yo, let's work out." I'm like, "Cool, let's do it." Then he's like, "Yo, we got to do like a retreat. You ever been to one?" And I'm like, I've been to like day seminars and, taken a bunch of courses and stuff like that, but I've never been to like overnight experience in terms of retreat. He's like, "Oh, I actually just came back from one." It was, I think it was more focused on like breath work and healing and, that type of stuff. He was like, "Yeah, we need to do one." I'm like, "All right, cool. Like, when is it?" Right? He's like, No, you need to lead one. I said, "Lead one? I never even been to one. What do you mean?" He's like, "No, like we can do this. Like everything you're doing in your life paired with like, my experience, and we tie your experience in and like what you're doing in leadership." And he owns a restaurant. He's an entrepreneur himself. You've built no snooze. Like, you're a government official. You've been in government X amount of years. You manage a lot of money. You manage teams of people. Like we got some influence here. Let's do it. I'm like, "All right, let's do it." So me, him, and Claudio, we actually, we put this episode out, and the episode touches this one woman who ends up reaching out like, "Hey, I heard you guys talking about like a retreat. I actually manage this 165-acre property in New Paltz, New York, and shout out to Steph Madonia. She was heavily involved in the inception of ACE, and without her, we would have never, been where we are today. So she ends up reaching out, and she's like, "Hey, like come check this property out." We actually go check it out on my birthday. It was my 34th birthday, so it seemed very purposeful. And we just I said, "Claudio," and this is what I do to him all the time. "Yo, hit record." He's like, "Record what?" "Hit record, my brother." Look into the camera. I'm like, "We got a 3-day transformative experience coming your way. We're going to bring high-level speakers. We have all your meals included, lodging." We didn't have anything, right? But the power of putting something out into the world is an accountability piece. And when you have something that you want to build and you pair that with like a strong team behind you, like you're more likely to go achieve those goals. So we kind of just put that out. And we wanted 25 guys to come because we wanted to keep it intimate. And we only sold 18. But for our first one, we were like, this is great. Like, let's do it. We ended up losing a couple $1,000s. But it was a full 3-day experience of exactly what we spoke about. We brought like Joe Girardi out, Vin Maselli, Diamandi Alingos, who's a former VP of the UFC, like pulling all these different connections to come do this. So there's 3 main components of ACE. First one is called ORT, Outdoor Resilience Training. That's where we get together and we challenge each other physically. We get in the cold plunge. We chop down some trees. We work out. The second one is called VBDs, Vulnerability Breakthrough Developments. That's where Sean and I get up and do exactly what you and I kind of are doing here. We share the uncomfortable things, the uncomfortable conversations that most men typically aren't having, but it quickly draws from experiences. People are like, oh, wow, I struggle with this. Like, oh, me too. Like, let's talk about it. How'd you get through it? Boom. And then the third piece is called ELT, Expert-Led Training. That's where we bring in somebody that's doing a little bit better in us than a certain field, whether that's a highly sought-after CEO, a speaker, an athlete, and we get that intimate conversation with a high-level person. So those are the 3 core, components of what we do.
Is that all in one day?
3-day.
Oh, 3 days.
That was a 3-day experience.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we finished that first summit, and the feedback was just tremendous. I mean, guys were literally voice noting us as they were leaving the property, crying. Like, this has been, so I get the chills even thinking about it. This has been the best experience of my life. I'm so excited to go home to my wife and child and just pour into them and show them this new version of myself. All from a 3-day experience. So we're like, wow, we can't let that momentum die. So Sean also owns the Sail House restaurant in Tarrytown, which is a phenomenal restaurant right on the water. You should check it out if you haven't been there. Great food. Tell him you know me, and he'll send you a dessert or something. So he also owns that. So he's like, yo, I used to do these leadership dinners every month. Like, they were cool, but then they lost traction. But I think like we need to just bring them back. So I'm like, cool, let's do it. So every month now since, we've done a leadership dinner. And then the women were like, wait, what about us? Because that's only for men. So we said, all right, let's do a co-ed workout together. So now we do 1 leadership dinner for men and 1 co-ed outdoor workout experience per month. So we have 2 events that we rock out with, and then 1 to 2 summits per year.
How did people find out about you? Like, how did you get the word out so quickly?
I would put that back to you. How did you find out about me? I don't know. I'm asking. Right?
Everyone tells me about you. But how do you make that impact? So I understand this is vulnerability, but what I'm trying to understand is, why wasn't this already created? What is so special about the ACE? See, women talk to each other all the time, right? When I think about vulnerability, we're always vulnerable. Like, if a guy texts me, I would tell them immediately, like, what do I do with this? But why do men not do this already?
I think it stems from society, right? Like, I think we're taught from a very early age, when you fall in the park, you get cracked in football when you're young, get up, stop crying, right? We begin to shelter our emotions from a very early age. I come to you now with a plethora of experience, especially in therapy, right? So for 7 years, I went to therapy every week. That's more therapy than probably 99% of human beings, right? That would do that. So I've learned a lot. I've read a lot. So again, and I want to be clear, I'm speaking on a much different level, than I was back then. But I think it all plays into the experience. And not that ACE didn't exist, but it didn't exist in like my network, right? Like, my guys were running in the clubs with me. Like, Sean was running rampant through college and, doing all types of things that all 20, 30-year-olds do. Like, we were doing that. So we were like, wait a minute, like, why are all these motivational speakers like in their 40s and 50s? Like, why can't we like build something? And if we're going to these events and paying hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to attend these retreats like Sean was doing, like, and we have this impact here, like, let's try to build something. But like I said, we only wanted to sell out 25 tickets, which we didn't even do on the first time. It was one of the most successful things in life, and we only had 18 people, right? Like, and then that 18 people turned to 36 people because they went home and they told their partners. They told their best friend. That 36 turned into 72. I'm not good at math, and after 72, I can't give you what the double is, but you get the point. So I think the same way you ended up hearing about me, and again, I don't know how it was specifically, but I think that probably was stemmed off of somebody who was either in the community or around the network or saw what was going on. And then who is not going to support something that is positive, inspiring, helping transform lives, I don't know many people that wouldn't want to support something like that. Like, I don't think ACE is for everybody, but it's for the individual that wants to grow. It's for the individual that's curious, that feels in their heart that something is calling them to be a little bit better. Whatever aspect of life. That could be fitness, finance, your family, your faith. A lot of F's there, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. But as long as you want to grow and you have a commitment to yourself and you want to raise a higher standard, right? Men are leaders. Every man listening to this podcast is a leader. Not that women aren't, but like, I'm not a woman, so I can't really, speak on that. But you're a leader of your family. You're a leader of your dog. You're a leader of your child. You're a leader at work. Like, life is revolving around you as the leader. You need to take charge. So I've been able to rebuild my life. Sean's been able to rebuild his life. We both came from nothing and have gotten here. We still want to go, to the moon, but you have to slowly, make those conscious decisions every day. For the past 5 years, I've trusted Kai Vision Studio with my podcast. And every time, Claudio delivers an exceptional experience. The setup here is flawless. Professional lighting, crystal clear audio, and a custom set that makes every episode look elite. As someone who speaks on leadership, I know how important it is to show up with clarity and confidence. This studio allows me to do just that. The quality here isn't just about the equipment, it's about the environment. Claudio has created a space where I can focus on my message, knowing the production will be sharp, engaging, and professional. In a world flooded with content, standing out matters. And having a studio like this gives me the edge to produce videos and podcasts that truly connect with my audience. If you're serious about creating high quality content, I can't recommend Kai Visions enough. Claudio makes you feel at home, yet delivers at the highest level. 5 years in, I'm not going anywhere else.
What's the future for ACE?
I wasn't joking about that. We have a tagline, to the moon, which is, what we say. And I'm pretty sure I said that at A to B too. Mm-hmm. And really all that means is to be global, to impact millions of lives, right? We understand that if something started local, there's no reason why it can't be global. Now we have to figure out the tools, tactics, strategies, routines to scale, which is what we're doing now. We actually just pulled in one of our first investors. Shout out to Vincent Maselli, who was also a podcast guest of Claudio and mine. Like, that's how this stuff really, really works. So keep going with this, because you never know who you're going to meet. So we're just expanding now, right? We got some pretty cool company partnerships that have come behind us. I mean, we're in talks with Lululemon started sending stuff. We're in talks with Nike. There's big companies and big conversations that are happening. Not that they're financially hitting us with anything yet, but just the fact that they're open and available to have the conversations, because Gary Vee was actually just talking. You know who Gary Vee is, and he believes that the future of business is based off of experiences. Right? I don't know if you've heard that clip, but in-person life experiences, whether that's virtual or not, but there's something to be said about experiencing something. Going to a community and really sitting down and breaking bread, having conversations with individuals. So I think in 2025, 2020, well, we're 2025 now, 26, 27, 28, we're going to see a real shift into community-focused businesses. We just happen to have a leg up now because we kind of started. But also, nothing exists without the No Snooze podcast. For 5 years, I'm happy now that people are talking about me and you heard about that. Cool. But people also have to realize for 4 years, no one was really talking about that. I was here. Claudio was here. Claudio, they were hitting you up? Were people talking about you? No, right? So when people say, wow, Claudio's got, 10 podcasts under the Kai Vision's production studio in Stamford, Connecticut. It's we've been building this for 5 years. So I'm happy it's happening now. But that is just a testament to what discipline and consistency can do. So I think, community is huge, but also I have to remind everybody that it wasn't just built overnight. And although ACE in 1 year has had more growth than the podcast has in 5, if it wasn't for the 5 years of the silent podcast, Ace would never exist.
What made you keep going with the No Snooze podcast?
Why would I stop? Right? Like, to me, I don't snooze on life, right? And if podcasting changed my life, that's what I wanted to do for individuals. And not necessarily in a sense of like, you're going to listen to my podcast and change your life, but you are going to listen to my podcast. And if you're there because you want to grow, right? Like, you don't want to snooze on your life either. So it's going to provide you with some level of motivation. And if you're listening to the radio or you're listening to your favorite music, why wouldn't you put on something a little bit more intentional that's going to talk about, like, you know, some strategies and tools and tactics that you can utilize in your life, right? Like, if I gave you $10,000 right now, you'd be like, what would you say?
Thanks for the $10,000.
Thanks for the $10,000. And you'd be like, oh, it's kind of a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? But to me, $10,000 isn't a lot of money. Right? And to me, I saved my first $10,000 because I was engulfed in personal and professional development. So I know that $10,000 is a big number, but the way that I think is very strategic and intentional. I know that breaks down to $833 a month. I know that breaks down to $210 a week. I know that breaks down into $29 a day. So if I said, hey, Pratt, you want to make $10,000 right now? Just go do something that you can make $29 a day. Is $29 a day a lot of money? No. So that's what personal and professional development did for me. It started to take really big things and break them down into minuscule things that somebody listening to this podcast right now can go mow somebody's lawn and make $29 a day. That's how I think. So that's what the podcast does for people. It kind of wakes them up to like, oh yeah, I can achieve anything.
Yeah. With the podcast, you're meeting so many different people in self-development. What made you choose to work with Sean in a business when you probably are getting connected with so many people?
Yeah, I mean, we got to the point that we could have, we could have branched out anywhere. But like, to me, why wouldn't I want to build alongside somebody that has the same focus, that has the same discipline, that brings a different level of expertise, but the same mission, the same grind, the same hustle. You know, you can always get to a certain place by yourself, but you're so much stronger as a team. And team is extremely important. I, again, believe in discipline and hard work, but I think you're only going to get so far. When you start collabing with people and you start having conversations with people and you choose to be strategic about who you're doing business with, you can just compound a lot faster. So really it just came down to our core values. And I could tell very quickly in one conversation that he was a man of action, right? And I'm a man of action too. So why not cultivate excellence through it? And that's how Action Cultivates Excellence came about.
How do you guys handle conflict?
Amongst
you and Sean?
So Sean and I are very different, right? Just like CV and I are very different. But we also, again, have the same mission. We've gotten to a place now to where even if we don't agree on something, we respect each other enough to take what the other person says and try to look at it from that perspective. Sean is not as meticulous with his he flows better in routine, but not so structured. Whereas Dave, I need to be like here. So his level of like organized chaos in a way, and his chaos is not chaos, but like you get what I'm trying to say. I'm like very like regimented and routine. He has his own, but like he allows like things to weave in and out. And I think that's also based off of his experience in hospitality as well. Like no 2 days are the same. Whereas for me, my days are pretty similar. Like I have the same thing. So we've just tapped into each other's strengths, and when we see somebody shining, the other one just backs up. Like nobody tries to fight for the limelight. And then the other thing that I think we do really well is we support each other. Like if he's on a podcast, I'm posting the podcast. If I'm in an article, he's posting the article. And that's genuine. And that's really hard to do. Like for a long time, I think I struggled with like jealousy and envy, or resentment or seeing other people and the comparison game. Oh, why is this person, here? Versus collaborating, right? Collaboration will beat competition any day of the week. And you'll end up going so much further together than you can by yourself. But also there's challenges that come up, and there's plenty of things that I'll be like, listen, man, we're gonna go with this. But if it's wrong, like, I'm gonna take the next one. But I'm gonna support you and I'm gonna get behind you, and nobody else is gonna know that I don't agree with what it is that you're saying. And we do that really well. It's a relationship, you know?
In the beginning of the No Snooze podcast, were you comparing yourself to other podcasts?
Absolutely. So shout out to Earn Your Leisure, my boys Troy and Rashad Bilal, Troy Millings, Rashad Bilal. These guys started a podcast probably 6 to 8 months before. And anytime I would look, I mean, these guys were moving quickly. I mean, they were interviewing the biggest athlete. They were in DJ Khaled's house. They're with Rick Ross. They're making thousands of dollars. They're making millions of dollars. I'm like, oh my God. And here we are, a little No Snooze podcast in Stamford, Connecticut, like, you know, just showing up every week with not that type of result. So I got to see firsthand, like, the growth and the rapid growth of individuals that I knew and respected. But I secretly was like, my message is good too. Like, why aren't I doing that? But something shifted for me, right? And I had to kind of pray on it and ask for, you know, for the guidance and to remove the jealousy. And instead of being jealous, I just started asking them, like, yo, how'd you do this? Or how'd you do that? Or, you know, let's collaborate in Greenberg, and, you know, let's do a basketball court together, and, like, let's do these different things. And they've been now instrumental in helping me in my, you know, professional development journey. They know I'm a speaker. They know I'm into leadership. They see what I'm doing. So they just asked me to come speak on the biggest stage that I'll speak on down in Atlanta, Georgia. But that's only because I had to swallow my pride and really give the kudos and the respect and understand that these guys made sacrifices and they earned everything that they got. And anybody that you're jealous of or envious of or you have resentment towards, shift the perspective. You can wish that was you, but it doesn't mean that that can't be you. And it doesn't mean that you can't achieve more than they've achieved. Or maybe you're just going in a different path. So I try to look at things a lot differently now. But I did that my whole life. Like, this guy's bigger than me. You know, that's just society. It's culture. It's like the constant comparison game. Whereas now I just put stuff out. I don't care. I see what's going on, but I'm going to support you if I rock with you. And I can have a little sense of, like, competition in me, but that's also what fuels me. You know, I'm a very competitive guy. So if I see you doing well, I'm going to learn from you, and then I'm going to try to hit that gas a little bit more too. But I think it's, you know, collaboration over competition every day of the week.
You're very transparent. How did you get this transparent and not be afraid of being judged?
I think we spoke about this on the phone. And I think I was talking about accountability, right? Like, I'm transparent now, but let's be honest. At the time of me being unfaithful in a relationship, I wasn't walking around the streets of New York and on podcasts like, I am such an unfaithful human being in my relationship. So I think when you truly change, and the people who know me and they know where I was versus, you know, who I am and where I am today, it's because it's authentic. It's because it's real. And again, I'm not defined by the mistakes that I made, but it would be silly of me to be out here talking about all the things that I talk about and not really living the life that I preach, right? That is the definition of fugazi, in my opinion, right? Wikipedia, that bad boy. That's what it is, right? Wikipedia? Yeah, so fugazi is just a fraud, right? Like, and that is that's like one of my biggest fears, is like being a fraud. Like, just out here motivating people, and then behind the scenes, I'm like, you know, doing drugs and, like, you know, cheating and doing all the bad things, making bad business moves and doing business with bad people, like, not living the godly life that I'm talking about. And again, I'm not perfect, right? I make mistakes for sure. But those big mistakes that I talk about, I'm able to be vulnerable because I'm not going to make those mistakes again. You know, so I think it's a level of, like, all right, that's where I was. Like, we could talk about it. We're not going to focus on it. But that's also not who I am today. I will share plenty of things that I struggle with on a daily basis, but they're not going to be, you know, those types of things that were life-changing moments for me, because I learned my lesson.
What are the things you struggle on a daily basis?
So I always battle body dysmorphia, which is something that a lot of people don't know. right? If you're not looking on YouTube, you should, because I got a really good beard. Shout out to Just for Men. And Pratt, you look great yourself here. Great nails today. So if you're not on YouTube and you can't see, I'm a rather decently sized human, right? I'm 6'2", 240 pounds, about 10% body fat. So I tried to keep myself in shape, but I lost 40 pounds in high school in 4 months, diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and I was down to 153 pounds, where I would walk around with toilet paper in my backpack. And it was a really rough time in my life. And that's what started my leadership journey, because I had to learn how to become a leader of my life by changing my physical appearance. So paired with medication for sure, and learning about the health and wellness industry and what foods would, make me go diarrhea in 5 minutes versus foods that would allow me to digest a little bit better, foods that, I wouldn't throw up after an hour. I created this whole log of foods that worked for me. So I became an expert in what worked for me in battling Crohn's disease. I was made fun of at that time a lot. I was always a popular kid. I had charisma about me and good character. And I was funny, but people would always make fun of me. Like, yo, you're so skinny. Like college coaches, I was heavily recruited for basketball. They would tell me, you are a phenomenal shooter, but you're weak. You're weak. Your neck is the skinniest thing I've ever seen. My last name is Reggina. They would call me Ramen Reg because my arms were like ramen noodles. I hated it. It drove me nuts. So I hit the gym, and I tried to get my mind and my body right, which I was able to do over the course of some years. But I still see that skinny guy, and people who really know me, they know. And it's not just me saying that, right? People think that I'm this cocky guy. I'm not. I'm confident. I'm very confident. But I'm not cocky, because even when I look in the mirror, I still see that real weak physical man that was passed out on his bathroom floor, diarrhea 16 times a day, throwing up, very malnourished, 4 months of Pedialyte and Ensure. So I have life experience that most people don't even know about. And I've been able to build this body, and I'm damn proud of it. So anytime I can take a picture with my shirt off, I do it, because I'm proud of the person that I've become, and I'm proud of the body that I built. And the discipline that I put in. But just because I'm disciplined doesn't mean that I don't see that skinny guy. Like my girlfriend, she gets it the worst, because I literally will come out in the morning and I'll be like, babe, I need something to eat. She's like, what's going on? I'm like, I look anorexic. It's just how I see myself, right? And I know it's not true, because I see pictures of me and I'm like, oh, well, you're a pretty big guy. But internally, I struggle with that a lot. And that's something that most people wouldn't know just by looking at me.
How does Crohn's disease affect your day-to-day life now?
So just a couple months back, I had a routine colonoscopy, which is something I get every 2 to 3 years. And typically it comes back, pretty solid. And I stopped drinking in 2024, just adding to the, betterment of my life and a decision that I needed to make. So I got my Crohn's disease pretty much in full remission. I get this colonoscopy back. My dad was with me, because you get put under anesthesia. Typically, you don't need a colonoscopy until you're about age 50. But for me, I've been getting them since I was 16 years old, because Crohn's disease is basically like white ulcers and holes in your large intestine, your small intestine, your esophagus, and your colon. So I get the colonoscopy. I'm expecting a doctor to come back and be like, yo, Dave, man, what are you doing? Your results are even better. He gives me a paper, and he's like, we found 6 polyps, and polyps are basically the thing that develops into cancer. So on the paper, the first 4 words was high-risk colon cancer. My dad was like, guess we need to up the life insurance, making a joke out of it, because we didn't really know what to say. But not for 1 second did I believe that to be true. I think breakthroughs start with belief. And a lot of people break down not because of what they're faced with, but because of what they do with what they're faced with. So when I saw that piece of paper, my immediate thought was, one, my God is bigger. My faith is bigger than that fact on that piece of paper. What I'm going to do is take this nap, drive home, and get a little workout in. I'm going to continue to live my life as if I'm healthy. I believed that I was healthy. So the doctor tells me I'll give you your results in a week. I said, a week? Thank God I'm into leadership, because a week is a really long time after you give somebody a piece of paper that says high risk colon cancer. Like, you want me to go pick up my daughter and be good? Like, what are you doing? That's going to give me an ulcer right there. And he calls me a week later, and I just moved about my day, moved about my week. My girl was praying for me, and she's praying on me every day. And she's like, we are good. Like, God's got us. We're good. So I never felt that I was like going to be sick. Sure enough, a week later, he comes back and he's like, Dave, not only was I wrong, I can't even detect the Crohn's disease anymore. I said, well, thank you, doc. That was what I was expecting. But how did you come to that conclusion then? And how did you write that on my piece of paper? Oh, well, I saw a white lesion in your colon tract that mimicked, what cancer typically looks like in its early phases. So just by you having the Crohn's disease for the past, 19 years, you're labeled as a high-risk colon cancer patient. I'm like, we should stop labeling people, but thank you, my brother. Have a good day. So my point in saying that is Crohn's disease is always with me, but it's not something I identify with at all. Let me guess. You're going to ask me another question.
I am just shocked by how you don't let things consume you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it's not there, right? But like, what you focus on magnifies in life. So whatever thing you're going through in your life, you have a choice, right? Like 170,000 people didn't wake up today. Facts. But you and I did. If that doesn't tell you that you are blessed, I don't know what will. So the job that you just lost, the relationship that just ended, the friendship that's no longer there, you went out last night and you drank too much and you did something stupid. Okay. Beat yourself up for a little bit. Go ahead. Take a day. Take 2. But after that, get back on track. Why are you holding yourself back? Life is meant to be lived. That's why they call it life. They don't call it death. Right? When you're dead, you're done. That's when life is over. You have 2 dates on your birthstone, on your death. What did they call that thing? A tombstone. Your birthstone. Yeah. You see how I think? It's so positive. I call it a birthstone. It's actually a tombstone. Those 2 dates, right? They focus on that. 1989, and then there's another date that I don't know yet. The dash is really quick, but I only see those 2 dates. It's what life shows us, right? It's how we're trained. But that dash in between is a choice that you have to live every day. So I just focus on the things that I can control. And I get pissed off. I do. And I get down in my, my nonsense. But I have a rule too. I never allow 2 days to happen that way. I could be down for 1 day, but I never, even if I'm on vacation, like I make sure I work out on the second day because I know the compound effect. The same way we spoke about that $10,000 in a negative way, if you're spending $29 a day, you're going to lose $10,000. So it's the same thing with your habits, routines, and rituals.
Yeah. I know you did the water fast, and we were trying to talk about that beforehand and got totally sidetracked. Mm-hmm. How was that for you? And would you do it again?
So fasting is amazing. It's something that I've heard about, but I never really knew about. My girlfriend was a huge inspiration. She does fasting, I don't know, a couple times a year. And she had just recently done one. I kind of started like getting a little bit curious, and that's how I roll. Like if I'm curious and I start learning, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. So I committed to doing a 3-day fast. And my intention was just to get closer spiritually. I would say a prayer, and then, when I would get hungry, I would take 10 swigs of water and just ask my higher power to fill me up with the Spirit. And I wanted to see how far that would take me. I would ask for the guidance and the wisdom to see what's next for me, right? Give me clarity. And what you notice after about 24 hours, your body goes into like this weird place. It's called autophagy. And autophagy is the Greek word for self-eating. So we have millions and millions of cells in our body. Now, those cells decide if they're going to become cancer cells or not. Everybody has the cells. So the process of autophagy is cell rejuvenation. When you're not feeding these cells actual food, the ones that are cancerous end up dying off. Or we continue to feed them muffins, donuts, food, and they grow. And then they decide if they're going to become cancerous or not. But again, we have all of us have those in our bodies. So the process of autophagy is your old cells dying and your new cells rejuvenating. But that can only happen when you go a period of 24 to 36 hours, which starts the process. No food. This is strictly water, black coffee. So I got to hour 24. I was like, wow, this is pretty easy. Like, you know, I'm feeling good. Turn to day 2, a boost of energy like you've never seen. I don't know if you've ever taken Adderall in your life. I have. Extreme level of focus and intention, because your body is now tapping into its own natural fuel source, right? Your body needs energy to move through it. What happens when we eat is the energy can no longer flow. So you go into this real talk about flow state. But you get like bouts of hunger, you get a little tired, but I'm like, yo, I'm disciplined. If Jesus did it for 40 days, I could do it for 3. So I just kept telling myself, you know, you can do this, you can do this. And I would read, a little study on fasting, and I would watch a documentary, and I saw that this woman who struggled with fibroids her whole life, she was told to fast for 10 days and the fibroids just fell in the toilet. Like, wild things are happening because your body, the way we can't see it, right? We can't see the internal workings. But by us feeding our bodies, healthy food or not healthy food, it's not good for our digestive system all the time. Never in my life have I not eaten for 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, even 1 day. Because when I do colonoscopies, you have to fast for 24 hours, but you can still have Jell-O, right? But you never want to break that autophagy piece. So it's different than intermittent fasting, because intermittent fasting is a period of time, but you're not getting into that cell rejuvenation stage. So I ended up getting to day 3, and I was like, wow, I really love this. Day 3, I woke up a little disappointed because I wasn't as on fire as day 2, but I still continued to go through my motions. It sounds crazy, but I still worked out every day. I still sat in a sauna for 20, 25 minutes a day. I don't really advise that, but it worked for me, so I did it. I would use 2 element salt packets, which are just strictly electrolytes, which also scientifically don't break the autophagy piece. So I was flowing, and I got to day 3, and I also did it with a community of guys. It started with, this is how the power of community works, right? Started at a dinner of 40 people, 5 committed to it. And from that 5, we ended up with 55 that were on this fast, because I told a couple coworkers, those coworkers told their families, told their friends, and we found that there was about 55 people touched by this. So I'm like, oh, I can do this. But it was only a 3-day fast. So then I'm like, I think I can keep going. I put that out there. One of my guys, Eddie Wazo, and actually Tia, what's her last name? She's from Brandon's speaker school.
Her last name.
Yeah. So she reached out and she was like, I'm in, let's do it. So the 3 of us actually finished the 5 days. And it was just a wonderful experience. And it's actually something that I'm going to do probably 3 times a year for 3 days, not the 5 days. That's like not necessary. Nobody needs to really do that. You still get the same benefits of the 3 days. But what a wonderful experience. Just really opened me up to a new side of life.
Did the water fast affect your body image in any way?
I struggled because I lost 13 pounds.
In 5 days?
In 5 days. But after day 1, I was down 7. So I actually shared that on Instagram. I said, I'm really loving the focus and everything about this fast. But for those of you who know me actually seeing a decrease on the scale, probably 99% of people in the world would be like, yes, let's go. My girlfriend was literally like, I hope that's me. Like, because when she fasts, she'll lose like 5 pounds. But here I go, I do it for the first time, I lose 13. But mentally, that was a challenge, right? Because of what I shared prior. So that was the only negative thing that came from it. But I just said, look, that's a thought. It's not reality. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not skinny. And also the science with that was crazy. By day 4, it's a fact that human growth hormone, right? Like, men take human growth hormone to, look like they're like aliens. It's not testosterone, but it's the growth hormone that allows us as human beings to function. That actually grows 4 to 5 times when you don't feed your body food. So after 4 days, there's a spike in HGH of 4 to 5 times. So not only was I not eating, I wasn't losing muscle, I was actually preserving muscle. Tell me that, I'm like, I won't eat again. Like, I don't even care what that scale says, but my muscle is building. So that's kind of how I just twist things. But yeah, that kind of bothered me a little bit.
How do you think, because a lot of women deal with body image, how do you go through your days when you look in your mirror and you feel kind of scrawny or you feel skinnier? Like, how did you get over that? Or maybe you didn't get over it, but how did you change your mindset?
So anytime I have a negative thought, I take a positive action. It's not easy, but it's simple to do. If I don't want to go to the gym, I put my shoes on. If I look in the mirror and I don't like what I see, you're beautiful. I tell myself that. You're strong. If I look skinny in that moment, maybe I go make a protein shake. Maybe I commit to something new. So a negative thought is always followed by a positive action. And again, it's not easy, but it's simple to do. Nothing that I'm saying or doing is like the hardest thing in the world. But again, you have a choice. You're going to look in the mirror just like I do, and you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm skinny or I'm fat or I hate the way I look. My butt looks small. My belly looks big, whatever it is. But like, what are you going to do about it? You're going to be like, oh, I'm so sad. I'm going to go back to bed now. I'm going to go eat a donut so my belly actually gets bigger. Like, I don't operate that way anymore. But I did for a long time. But also I do know scientifically, right? They call me the big science. No one calls me that. I call myself that. I know that, we have on average about 60,000 thoughts a day that run through our brain. You know how many of them are negative?
I think like 50,000.
80%. Yeah, 80%. 80% are negative because our brains are wired in stress. Now, a lot of those stressors are subconscious and it's actually healthy, right? Like if you're driving in a car and something's coming at you, boom, you swerve. That's not like your body doing that. That's your brain connecting and you doing that. So some stress is good. But now if I know that the majority of my thoughts are negative, it is so critically important that I take a positive action and I start to tell myself positive things. Because like we said earlier, what you focus on magnifies, right? So there's nothing that I do that's like super special. But I'm very consistent. And like the next time you look at yourself and you're like, oh my God, I don't like the way that I look, follow it up with a positive action. Like go make yourself a nice healthy glass of lemon water. Like do something that's going to move the needle forward for you.
Yeah. This has been amazing. What can people expect from you in the next year? Through speaking, anything that you're looking forward to?
I think individuals are going to start seeing me on a lot bigger stages, a lot bigger podcasts, media. I think that is coming. The influence is growing for sure. I think in ACE and in business, we just want to impact lives, right? Like every day, if I can just impact one person, I've done my job, right? If I was able to be blessed with the opportunity to come on this podcast and somebody hears this and is like, you know what, next time I look in the mirror, I'm going to take a positive action. Like I did my job. That's extremely fulfilling to me. I have a personal mission to expand my impact and become the most disciplined and consistent version of myself as a father, businessman, man of faith, partner. And as long as I'm doing that, I'm okay. I'm not looking for, 100 million tomorrow. I'll take that in a month, not tomorrow. The money doesn't really drive me anymore. And for a long time, I was really focused on the money. Like I remember being 24 or 26 years old, and that was like the first time that I made $100,000. But I did it through like 5 jobs. Like I had one job that was paying me $49,000. I was doing personal training, making $15,000. I was caddying, making $7,000. I was, doing whatever. Whereas now it's like I don't care about the money. Like my lifestyle is, I'm good with my lifestyle. Of course, I want to continue to grow, and there's things that I need to pay off, and I need to provide a life for my child. But nothing that I do in this motivational world is attached to money, right? Like I go a lot of these things, and it bothers me when I hear. I was just on another podcast, a startup podcast, and I was talking to these wonderful ladies. Shout out to the Trainer twins. They're young in their journey, and they were like, "Dave, I can't believe you didn't ask us for money." I'm like, "For money for what?" They're like, "Well, like, you're of influence, and, we just paid $400 for someone to come out who doesn't even have as much influence as you." I'm like, I hope you learned your lesson, because people who are really about this life and really want to help people, they're not going to charge you. Like, is there a time and a place? Of course. Like, if there's a corporation or something like that, like, yeah, I have a price attached to me, but I also decide and I committed to making sure that I'm of service to people. Because if the money is the thing that drives you, I think that'll fade away really quickly.
Yeah, I agree. How can people join ACE?
So you could join ACE. The website is acesanctuary.com. We have monthly dinners at the Sale House in Tarrytown. That's typically on the third or fourth Tuesday of every month. You can come join one of our co-ed workouts. You can find everything on my Instagram, which is at Dave Reg, REGG. I'm sure Claudio will put a little bing on the episode for you there, and that'll pop up.
About ACE, you said
Yep.
There's going to be women's ACE, right, in the future?
Oh,
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
When you told me that, I was like, yes, finally.
Yeah. So again, we're very intentional what we're doing with men because we are men, but we also understand that there is this need for women as well. And so many women have hit us up, and so many different networks are popping up in communities, which I still encourage people to do. Like, continue to build community and all that. But like the ACE mission is very focused, right? That challenge, learn, and serve piece that we were talking about, that still is going to go for women as well. So we're working on figuring out the details and putting the right players in place for ACE women. But it's definitely something that you can look forward to because it's coming.
Yeah, I love that. Where can people find you on Instagram, your No Snooze?
Yeah. So I shared my personal Instagram at Dave Reg, but you could find the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Instagram at No Snooze Podcast as well.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Grateful for any opportunity that I have to share my story with individuals. I hope I delivered for you. And I'm excited to, watch you grow in everything you're doing in life.
Yeah, this has been amazing. I learned so much. This has been
you.
absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Till next time, this is the Unchill Podcast.
Thank you guys for tuning in. That's another epi in the books. You can follow us on Instagram at No Snooze Podcast and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, No Snooze. Shop the latest merch at nosnoozeshop.com. Come on.